She said, maybe we should just stay friends. I replied, okay, and let her go. Then I accepted an engineering job in Nevada, started over, built a new life, and found a new relationship. Later, when everything she had hoped for fell apart, she showed up at my door. I am Ryan, 33, and I work as a mechanical engineer for a manufacturing company in Ohio. My days are structured, predictable, and usually quiet. I rent a modest townhouse near my office and spend most evenings either at the gym or working on small design projects at home. My girlfriend was Alyssa, 29. We had been together for a little over 3 years, living separately but spending most nights at my place. She worked in event marketing and thrived on attention, noise, and constant social movement. Where I liked routine, she liked disruption. At the time, I believed that meant we balanced each other. For most of our relationship, Alyssa had a way of framing dissatisfaction as growth. If she was bored, it meant she was evolving. If she picked a fight, it meant I was not challenging her enough. She liked to remind me that she had options. She said it playfully at first, then less playfully. About 4 months before everything ended, she started saying we were in different seasons of life. I asked what that meant in practical terms. She never answered directly. Instead, she would criticize small things. My job was stable but not exciting. My townhouse was comfortable but not impressive. My weekends were predictable. She would compare us to couples she followed online, people constantly traveling or launching startups. The actual breakup happened on a Tuesday night in my kitchen. She was pacing while I was loading the dishwasher. She said maybe we should just stay friends. She said it like she was offering me an upgrade, like friendship was a prize. I dried my hands, looked at her, and said, okay. She blinked like she had misheard me. I did not argue. I did not ask for clarification. I did not try to negotiate terms. I simply asked when she planned to pick up the rest of her things. That was the moment her tone shifted. When I asked when she planned to pick up the rest of her things, she stopped pacing and stared at me like I had insulted her. You are not even going to fight for me? She said. I told her I do not fight for someone who just opted out.
If she wanted to leave, that was her decision. I was not going to stand in the doorway and block it. That made her angry. Alyssa did not like clean exits. She preferred tension. She preferred scenes where she could feel wanted. Instead, she got logistics. She accused me of being cold, said my lack of reaction proved we were incompatible, said she needed passion, not a spreadsheet. The truth was simpler. When someone says, maybe we should just stay friends, they are not asking for reassurance. They are testing leverage. I was not interested in negotiating for my own position in my own relationship. She gathered some clothes that night and left in a dramatic rush. The next morning, she texted asking if we could talk again when I had processed things. I responded that there was nothing to process. She said she wanted to explore who she was without the pressure of commitment. I told her I hoped she figured that out. That weekend, I boxed up the rest of her belongings. Nothing symbolic, just practical. Shoes, a few kitchen items she had bought, framed photos she liked more than I did. I left the boxes at her sister's apartment, after confirming by text that it was acceptable.
2 weeks later, I accepted an engineering position in Nevada. That part was not impulsive. I had been interviewing quietly for months. The company specialized in renewable energy systems, and the role came with a significant salary increase and leadership responsibility. I had not mentioned it to Alyssa because I had not been sure I would take it. When she found out through a mutual friend, she called immediately. "So, you were planning to leave anyway," she said. "No," I replied. "I was planning for options."
There was a long silence on the line. She said she thought I would chase her. She assumed the breakup would force me to prove how much I wanted her. Instead, I was packing. The week before I left for Nevada, Alyssa's calls increased. At first, it was casual. She wanted to grab coffee before I moved. She said it would be mature to have closure. I told her I did not need closure. The relationship had ended clearly enough. Then the tone shifted. She started sending late-night texts about memories, photos from trips, inside jokes. She reminded me of things I had done for her, framed as proof that we were special. It felt less like nostalgia and more like inventory. One night, she showed up at my townhouse unannounced. She knocked like she still lived there. I opened the door because I was expecting a package delivery.
She stepped inside without asking and looked around like she was inspecting something she had misplaced. "So, this is it," she said. "You are really leaving." "Yes. You are not even a little sad." I told her I was disappointed, but not confused. There is a difference. She rolled her eyes and said I was emotionally robotic. She asked if I was seeing someone already. I said no. She asked if there was someone in Nevada. I said no again. Then she said something that clarified everything. I thought if I pulled back, he would finally step up. That was the first honest sentence she had spoken in weeks. I told her I do not respond to ultimatums or tests. If someone wants to be with me, they can say that directly. I am not interested in decoding threats. She stood there, waiting for me to change my mind. I did not. When she left, 2 days later, I was on a one-way flight to Reno with 2 suitcases, a signed contract, and no pending conversations. For the first time in months, everything felt quiet. Reno was not glamorous, but it was clean and efficient. The company had relocated me with a modest package, so I moved into a newer apartment complex about 15 minutes from the plant. Mountains in the distance, dry air, wide roads. It felt open. The new role was demanding in a way I appreciated. I was managing a small team for the first time, overseeing system integration on large-scale renewable projects. My days were long, but structured. There was no emotional guessing game at work. Problems had causes. Causes had fixes. The first month passed without drama. Alyssa tried once more through email, a short message asking if we could talk. I did not respond. I archived it and adjusted my filters, so anything from her address skipped my inbox entirely in my email. Blocking her was not theatrical. It was practical. I was not interested in reopening negotiations that had already been settled. Around week 6, a mutual friend texted me asking if Alyssa and I were secretly working things out. Apparently, she had been telling people we were just taking space while I got established. That surprised me. I replied with a simple no. We broke up, I moved, that is it. The friend sent back a screenshot from Alyssa's social media. It was a vague caption about sometimes losing something stable because you needed to chase something extraordinary. The comments were full of people encouraging her to follow her heart. I did not engage. I muted the friend's thread after clarifying the facts. Over the next few months, my life became routine again. I joined a local climbing gym, I started hiking on weekends, I met new colleagues outside of work who had nothing to do with my past. About 5 months in, I met Emily at a volunteer event the company sponsored. She was 31, worked as a civil engineer for the city, and had a way of speaking that was direct without being sharp. Our first conversation lasted almost 2 hours. No performance, no testing, just 2 adults comparing notes on career paths and bad coffee. When I asked her out the following week,
She said yes without theatrics. There was something steady about her that I had not realized I was missing. That was when Alyssa started calling again. Alyssa did not call again. She could not. I had blocked her number, her email, and her social media accounts. There was no direct channel left. For a while, I assumed that would be the end of it.
It was not. The first message came through my younger sister. She texted me one evening asking if Alyssa and I were speaking again, because Alyssa had reached out to her on Instagram. Apparently, Alyssa said she wanted to clear the air and make sure there were no hard feelings. She told my sister that I had shut her out without warning, and that she was confused by how quickly I moved on. I told my sister we broke up because Alyssa suggested it. I moved because I accepted a job. There was nothing confusing about that sequence. 2 weeks later, one of our old mutual friends called me. He sounded uncomfortable. Alyssa had been at a group dinner and mentioned that she and I were still in contact privately. She implied that I was the one keeping things quiet because of the new job. That annoyed me more than the breakup itself. I clarified directly. We have zero contact. I blocked her. There was nothing to hide. The friend paused and said she seemed convinced that I would eventually circle back once the excitement of Nevada wore off. That was the first time I understood her assumption clearly. She thought this was temporary. She believed distance would create nostalgia. She assumed I would compare everyone new to her in return. Meanwhile, Emily and I were building something simple and unforced. Emily knew about Alyssa in broad terms. I told her my last relationship ended because of misaligned expectations and testing behavior. I did not dramatize it. I did not villainize Alyssa. I just stated facts. Emily nodded and said she preferred direct communication over games. Around month 8 in Nevada, Alyssa escalated. She contacted my mother. My mother called me on a Sunday afternoon while I was meal prepping for the week. She does not call casually. If she calls instead of texting, it usually means something is off. She asked me if Alyssa and I had unresolved issues. I said no. She hesitated and then explained that Alyssa had sent her a long message on Facebook. According to my mom, the message was polite but loaded. Alyssa said she was worried about me. She said I had shut down emotionally and isolated myself in Nevada. She framed the move as impulsive and hinted that I was making decisions out of hurt pride. That part almost impressed me. It was strategic. She could not reach me directly, so she tried to create doubt around me. If my family questioned my judgment, maybe I would feel pressure to explain myself. Maybe I would reopen contact just to manage the narrative. I told my mom the timeline calmly. Alyssa suggested staying friends. I agreed. I accepted a job that had been in motion for months. I blocked her because she kept reframing the breakup as temporary. My mother listened quietly and then said something simple. "You sound fine." That was the end of it. Later that week, a different mutual friend reached out. Alyssa had apparently told a small group that my new relationship was a rebound and that I had always been afraid of deeper commitment. She implied that I left because I was intimidated by her ambition. It was revisionist, but predictable. Meanwhile, Emily and I were steady. We were not posting vague captions or triangulating friends. We were planning a weekend trip to Lake Tahoe and arguing about which hiking trail was less crowded. One evening, Emily asked me directly if Alyssa would be a problem. I told her no. Not because Alyssa would not try, but because I would not participate. That distinction mattered. Around month 11 in Nevada, everything Alyssa had hoped for started collapsing. I did not hear directly from Alyssa when things started falling apart. I heard it the same way I had heard everything else since I blocked her, through other people. One of our old mutual friends called me late on a Thursday night. Not to stir drama,
He sounded tired. He told me Alyssa had quit her job 3 months earlier. Apparently, she thought she had a better offer lined up with a startup that promised travel and higher pay. That offer never materialized the way she expected. The startup downsized. Her role was cut before it stabilized. At the same time, the guy she had started seeing shortly after I moved out of Ohio had ended things. From what I was told, he did not appreciate being compared to me in arguments. That part was almost ironic. The friend said she had been talking a lot about regret, not in a reflective way, more like she was narrating a comeback story. She told people she let something solid slip because she wanted fireworks. Then came the part that mattered. She had asked him for my new address. He did not give it to her. I thanked him for that and kept the conversation short. That weekend, Emily and I were assembling a bookshelf in my living room.
Nothing dramatic, just instructions, misplaced screws, and mild frustration over an uneven shelf. While we were working, my building manager knocked on my door. There was someone in the lobby asking for me. He said she claimed to be an old friend who was in town unexpectedly. I already knew. I had not posted my address publicly. I had not shared it widely, but it was not impossible to find if someone was determined. Emily looked at me calmly and asked if I wanted her to leave. I said no. There was nothing secret about my life. I went downstairs. Alyssa was standing near the mailboxes with a suitcase beside her. She smiled like this was a coincidence. Seeing her there felt less emotional than I expected. She looked thinner, not fragile, just worn down. The suitcase beside her was small, like she had packed in a rush, but tried to make it look intentional. She said she was in town for a marketing conference in Reno. That part was plausible. Then she added that she thought she would stop by and surprise me since she was already here. I asked how she got my address. She said she asked around. People talk. That answer told me enough. She stepped a little closer and lowered her voice. I have been thinking a lot. I made a mistake. I did not interrupt her. I let her talk. She said she had been chasing things that looked exciting, but were not stable. She said she realized too late that stability is rare. She said she missed how calm she felt around me, how safe. Then she said the part she probably rehearsed. I thought you would fight for me. I thought if I pushed you, you would show me I mattered. I told her that when someone says, maybe we should just stay friends, I believe them. I do not audition for my own relationship. She glanced past me toward the elevator, then back at me. Are you seeing someone? Yes. Her jaw tightened slightly. Serious? Yes. She nodded like she expected that answer, but did not like it. Then she shifted tactics. She said people grow. She said we were young and stupid. She said we could start fresh in Nevada. She even said she would consider relocating permanently if that was what it took. That was the first time she framed herself as the one willing to move. I told her my life here was not an open slot waiting to be refilled. She looked up at my apartment balcony and asked if she could at least come upstairs to talk properly. I said no. She stood there for a few seconds, calculating. Then she asked where she was supposed to go. That was when I realized she had not just come to visit. She had not booked a hotel. I asked her directly where she was staying. She hesitated just long enough to confirm what I already suspected. She said she thought we could talk first, and then figure it out. That told me she was operating on assumption again. The same assumption that had driven the breakup, that I would absorb the uncertainty and make it comfortable for her. I told her she needed to book a room. There were multiple hotels within walking distance. I even pointed one out across the street. She looked genuinely offended. So that is it? You're not even going to hear me out upstairs?
told her I had hurt her. She missed stability. She miscalculated. She wanted to reset. None of that changed the decision. She asked if this was because of the new girl. I said no. This was because
The guy
when she
dated
left,
was
she
unreliable.
meant it.
Her friends were busy chasing their own chaos. She said she finally understood what consistency looked like. I told her consistency is not something you circle back to when experiments fail. She accused me of being rigid, of having no forgiveness. That part was almost ironic. I had not been angry. I had not attacked her publicly. I had not tried to sabotage anything in her life. I had simply moved forward. She looked toward the entrance, like she was considering forcing her way past me. I stepped back slightly and kept my tone even. You cannot come upstairs. This is not a discussion about access. It is about boundaries. She asked if I still loved her. I said I cared about the time we had, but that is different from wanting it back. There was a long silence in the lobby. Then she picked up her suitcase. For a second, I thought she was going to leave quietly. Instead, she said something softer. You were supposed to come back. That was the clearest summary of her entire plan. I did not respond. I held the door open for her to step outside. She stepped outside, and the lobby door closed between us. For a moment, she stood there on the sidewalk, suitcase in hand, looking smaller than I remembered. Not physically, just structurally. The confidence she used to carry like armor was gone. She said one last thing through the glass. I did not think you would actually let me go. That was honest, in a way nothing else had been. I walked outside so she would not be talking to a door. I told her letting her go was not an act of revenge. It was alignment. She asked for distance. I respected it. I built something else with the space. She asked if I was really happy. I said yes. Not because my life was dramatic or impressive, but because it was steady. Because the person I was with now did not test loyalty by threatening to withdraw it. Because my job, my home, my relationship all functioned without hidden clauses. She nodded slowly. The fight was gone. What remained was realization. She said she thought I would get bored. She thought Nevada would feel empty. She thought I would compare everyone to her and eventually miss the volatility. I told her peace does not feel empty once you recognize it. She asked if there was any version of the future where we found our way back. I said no. Not angrily, not loudly, just clearly. A rideshare pulled up. She had finally booked it while we were talking. She lifted the suitcase into the trunk without asking for help. Before she got in, she looked at me one last time, like she was searching for hesitation. There was none. I went back upstairs. Emily was sitting on the couch with 2 mugs of tea. She did not interrogate me. She simply asked if everything was handled.